Chapter 285, True Clear Sky Hammer, Fully Restored Clear Sky Douluo, TL by Bagelson. Tang Hao shouted wildly, "Little San, look closely. This is the true might of our clear sky hammer." While speaking, Tang Hao walked forward with large strides, his body like a whirlwind, the clear sky hammer in his hand dancing swiftly, charging straight at golden crocodile Douluo. If golden crocodile Douluo was now like a dazzling golden sun, then now Tang Hao was like a black devil star, filled with violent tyranny and devouring vicious aggressiveness. Ever since he was a child, Tang San had only seen Tang Hao attack once, and that was back at Spirit Hall when Tang Hao used the strength of a single attack to beat back several Spirit Hall title Douluo, saving him and Xiaowu. But at that time Tang Hao was still injured, his strength decreased. Tang San had still never seen his father's true strength. Now, while eating big recovery sausages and settling his breathing, he focused on watching his father. At this moment that falling devil Douluo had also recovered, but he didn't get involved, rather swiftly escaping to one side. His deferential manner towards golden crocodile Douluo clear to see. This second priest was a majestic existence in the Spirit Empire. Tang San calmed down, his brain quickly calculating. He knew that the Heaven Do Empire now stood no chance of breaking Doling Pass. The Spirit Empire's 6 great priests as well as 5,000 spirit masters as reinforcement completely reversed the difference in strength between the two sides. Adding in the 15-ton Douluo he sent flying, there were 4 priest-level title Douluo within the pass. It was already difficult for the Clear Sky School disciples his uncle led to screen the Heaven Do army's retreat. Another attack was impossible. The timing had been lost with this. Only, even though this battle was a considerable loss for the Heaven Do Empire, the Spirit Empire defenders in Doling Pass had equally suffered disastrous losses. By numbers, the Angel and Sacred Dragon Spirit Master legions would do well if they could raise 10,000 men combined, and the army losses were uncountable. And even though the losses on the Heaven Do Empire side were also very large, at least the Tang army was unharmed, and the number of lost Spirit Masters was also much smaller than the enemy. The Heaven Do Empire's national strength was deep, and from a wider perspective, even though it was impossible to break the enemy in today's battle, the advantage still lay faintly on the Heaven Do Empire's side. Even though BB Dong wasn't dead, it was impossible for her to regain any fighting strength within 1 month. After this battle of the pass ended, they could consider how to fight with these 6 great priests. Thinking about this, Tang San signaled his comrades on the other side with his eyes. Of the group of powers that originally held the advantage, now only Sword Douluo remained to bring up the rear while the others quickly abandoned the walls. And Sword Douluo was now just heading in Tang San's direction to protect him. At the moment, T-rank 97 title Douluo's eyes were filled with fanaticism. Of course he recognized Tang Hao. This once clear sky Douluo had created too many miracles in the Spirit Master world. But he had equally heard about golden crocodile Douluo. This Douluo had once been as famous as Sword Douluo's grandfather. His seniority was high, his strength overpowering. He was absolutely a well-known figure of the old generation. The collision between the new and old generations was definitely a marvel to Sword Douluo, who had it very difficult to advance further. He didn't want to miss this chance. With only 1 arm remaining, he couldn't tell if he might learn something from this kind of peak confrontation. In fact, spirit power level didn't completely represent strength. This was clear to see from the only rank 93 Tang San defeating several powers. Facing the chances in golden crocodile Douluo, Tang Hao was still expressionless, still only pointing at him with that giant clear sky hammer. Due to the immensity of the clear sky hammer, right now he didn't even see the enemy, but his aura of dominating all things under the sky still wasn't influenced in the slightest by the enemy's strength. Having connected the 8 extraordinary meridians with Tang San's help, Tang Hao's spirit power had already reached rank 97. Even though the 1 level difference between rank 97 and rank 98 was double the spirit power and should put him at a disadvantage, ever since Tang Hao made his appearance he had never been truly defeated. His flourishing grandeur and imposing appearance made even Tang San behind him feel like he wasn't his equal. Come. Tang Hao shouted. The anger in golden crocodile's mind increased yet another bit. He was 3 generations senior to Tang Hao, and he was overconfident in his status. Originally he was waiting for Tang Hao to attack first, but he didn't expect Tang Hao to actually be so arrogant, so much that he even disdained giving him this slight convenience. Anger he hadn't felt in years overflowed his chest. He didn't speak nonsense, his whole body radiating golden light, instantly turning around, swinging the giant tail on his back towards Tang Hao like a mace. That of course wasn't just a whiplash, as that giant alligator tail swung out, where it passed the air grew distorted and illusory, making people fundamentally unable to see where it was. Terrifying slipstreams generated a series of sharp whistles and bangs in the air. This wasn't using any spirit ability, it was just the simplest physical attack. Tang Hao's movements were equally simple, taking 1 step forward with his left foot, planting it heavily on the ground, and with an enormous explosive sound, cracks spread out through the solid walls of Jolling Pass with his left foot as the center. Tang Hao's arm with the clear sky hammer instantly stretched out behind him, all his muscles instantaneously tensing, intense black light completely merging his body and the hammer together. Raising his left heel, he supported himself only on the tips of his foot, the muscles of his left calf instantly rupturing his pants leg, exposing muscles even more solid than granite. The next moment, the clear sky hammer soundlessly swung out. Indeed, it didn't make any noise, as if all sound was absorbed by the hammer. That giant hammer filled the sky, and even though there was no sound to offset its power, in Tang San's eyes, this swing was the complete fusion of all of Tang Hao's energies, to the extent that even his domineering imposing manner was merged into the clear sky hammer. This seemingly simple swing still gave Tang San an all-new understanding of swinging hammers. Just like Tang Hao said, this was the true clear sky hammer. Boom! The clear sky hammer and crocodile tail violently collided, a terrifying energy wave dispersing in all directions. Tang San could clearly feel how frightening the energy of his father's single swing was, actually making him think that he couldn't match it even if he used the sea god trident. When Tang San was still very small, Tang Hao once taught him that the calves were the source of human strength, and the muscles of the calves were a person's second and third hearts. Before today, Tang San had thought he'd done very well, but now that he saw his father's explosive hammer, he discovered that he was unexpectedly still far behind in the use of force. The moment his father's left calf exploded with force, it really did throb violently like a heart. His entire body was like a large bow curved around his calf. Physical force, the clear sky hammer's force, mental force plus spirit power, all perfectly combined into one. Once praised as a genius difficult to see again in 100 years on the clear sky school, Tang Hao finally revealed his true strength before his son. Golden crocodile Douluo's crocodile tail was blasted away by the clear sky hammer, even forcing him to spin back half a turn. The spirit power he released absolutely wasn't any lower than Tang Hao's, but in this situation where his spirit power should have completely suppressed Tang Hao, he was actually put at a disadvantage in this attack. Tang Hao's motions didn't stop. The hammer swept sideways, knocking back the crocodile tail, and he spun swiftly around his left foot, actually piercing into the solid rock walls like a drill bit. The clear sky hammer brought his overpowering body to suddenly spin with the momentum. This time, he bent even further, and the eruption was also even more violent. The second swing knocked against golden crocodile Douluo closely after the first. Golden crocodile Douluo was worthy of being a rank 98 title Douluo. Even though he suffered a major loss in the first collision, he definitely reacted extremely quickly. At the same time as he spun horizontally in midair, his 7th spirit ring was already brightening. The muscles and veins all over his body instantly expanded. Golden crocodile avatar released. He fully transformed into a more than 10-meter long giant crocodile. He equally lashed out with his tail, but this time his imposing manner was completely different. The enormous force made sand swirl and rocks roll on the walls, bringing a frightening intensity like clouds covering the sun. Facing the enemy's sudden strengthening, Tang Hao remained unmoved. He erupted with his second swing, still with the same manner, but just the moment the clear sky hammer was about to collide with golden crocodile Douluo's spirit avatar state crocodile tail, suddenly, the entire clear sky hammer turned completely white. Tang Hao's own aggressiveness instantly turned berserk. With a roar, like a glowering deity, the rock beneath him began to crack piece by piece under the surging strength. Boom! Both sides struck together a second time without any suspense. This time Tang Hao couldn't knock back the crocodile tail, but neither could the tail sway him. Tang Hao sprang up, leaping forward with an incomparably invading manner. His left foot once again struck the ground, and this time a giant hole formed in the wall where he stepped. With an explosive sound, the clear sky hammer rose sharply against the wind, and the originally enormous hammer seemed to turn the size of a cloud bank, smashing straight down towards golden crocodile Douluo like black clouds above. From the first swing to the third, Tang Hao didn't show the kind of smooth and fluent feeling Tang San did, but as he combined his third swing, it was still filled with the beauty of force. That wild imposing manner made it seem like he was a clear sky hammer, ruthlessly forging the enemy. Golden crocodile Douluo, who clearly surpassed him in spirit power, and even more in cultivation and experience, had unexpectedly become completely passive. The third swing smashing towards his head from above was the display of the clear sky avatar. Back then Tang Hao Back then Tang Hao relied on this kind of move to rescue Tang San and Xiao Wu in front of the Supreme Pontiff Palace. Right now he didn't just face the Supreme Pontiff Palace, but rather the Spirit Empire's number 2 priest. 3 swings in succession had brought his imposing manner to its peak, a frightening level that couldn't be described in words. Clearly a feeling of being unable to compete had formed in the heart of Golden Crocodile Douluo, whose cultivation was higher than his. How come? Could the Clear Sky Hammer spirit really be so powerful? Or was it to say that this middle-aged man was already formidable to such a degree? Golden Crocodile Douluo had once met the Clear Sky School's most outstanding sect master Tang Chen, but at that time when Tang Chen fought Chen Dalu, he used his Clear Sky Hammer completely different from this Tang Hao. Even though Tang Chen was completely domineering, he relied even more on a combination of his formidable spirit power and skill. His extremely clever attacks frequently leaving the enemy with no way to defend. But this Tang Hao didn't walk Tang Chen's road. What he released was all force, incomparably enormous force. Even if the enemy's spirit power was higher than his, he still chose to overwhelm the opponent with force. This moment, the Tang Sect strength hole master Titan, who had already retreated below, had tears streaming down his cheeks. The reason he respected Tang Hao so, admitted him as master, as lord, wasn't it due to Tang Hao's this pure force domineering Clear Sky Hammer? Equally retreating and withdrawn from the golden sacred dragon state, Flender also felt his whole body go cold. He still remembered how Tang Hao had completely suppressed him and Zhao Wuji back then without using any spirit abilities, and without even releasing his spirit. He really was very happy that he hadn't truly challenged Tang Hao back then, leading the Clear Sky School disciples in screening the army's retreat, on his own also holding off 3 priests at the same time as he retreated from Jilin Pass. Tang Xiao also saw this scene, and his gaze grew a bit blurry, but the Clear Sky Hammer in his hand became even more intense, rigidly keeping those 3 priests from rushing out the gates. The Clear Sky School's Clear Sky Douluo had finally returned again. The title of Clear Sky Douluo in the Clear Sky School never meant the strongest in spirit power, but rather truly the strongest. Once Tang Chen, then and now Tang Hao, both were like this, overlords beneath the sky, standing above Jilin Pass and swinging down the infinitely powerful Clear Sky explosive strike, equally declared, the Clear Sky School has returned. Finally Golden Crocodile Douluo couldn't clash with that peak pressure. The crocodile's body instantly retreated, its solid head heavily striking the side of the Clear Sky Hammer's Clear Sky avatar, but his body was still flung away by the strike, forcibly blasted flying, and the Clear Sky Hammer bombarded the walls of Jilin Pass without pause. Black light flashed, and all of space seemed to shake. Everyone felt their heart suddenly pause a moment. When it beat again it was twice as fast. It was also in the same moment as it resumed beating that an enormous explosion, loud enough to travel 100 li, blasted the top of Jilin Pass. Bold and unrestrained blacklight scattered in all directions, and on the 100-meter thick walls of Jilin Pass, with rocks flying, actually had a 10-meter deep giant gap blasted out. Golden Crocodile Douluo suddenly discovered that he really had grown old, even though he landed safe and sound, without being much influenced by Tang Hao's swing. As he saw the giant opening ahead, and sensed the opponent's domineering aura, he understood that his heart had already lost. Tang Hao didn't pursue, standing there with the hammer horizontal. Right now he didn't seem in any way inferior to Tang San when he defeated BB Dong and hung in midair with the brilliant golden trident. His aggressiveness formed a distinct contrast from Tang San's grace, but it doubtless made a deep impression on the hearts of the Heaven Do Empire soldiers. Golden Crocodile Douluo, just now I forgot to tell you, my name is Tang Hao, title Clear Sky. I am the Clear Sky Douluo of this generation's Clear Sky School. Back then I injured Chen Zhenji, until he spit blood and died. I remember that his spirit power had already reached rank 95 then, and I had just stepped into the title Douluo realm. Golden Crocodile Douluo's expression changed, crying out involuntarily, "You're Tang Hao." Even though it had been too long since he left Elder Palace, how could he not know the name Tang Hao? Chen Zhenji was the last generation Spirit Hall Supreme Pontiff, and also the sole son of High Priest Chen Douluo. In those days he had also been praised as the genius of a generation of Spirit Hall, reaching the title Douluo level at age 50, then repeatedly breaking through again. But, even so, he was still injured by Tang Hao, and died not long after returning the Spirit Hall. The name Tang Hao had almost driven Chen Dalu berserk, and the old man's pain of holding a funeral for his son had even more made Chen Dalu personally set out to kill Tang Hao. But, after he couldn't kill Tang Hao after fighting him a few times, he'd lost track of Tang Hao's whereabouts. 20 years had gone by, and he hadn't expected that the Clear Sky Douluo who shook Spirit Hall back then would actually appear again at this moment, and still appear in front of him. Tang Hao raised his left hand, extending a forefinger to point at Golden Crocodile Douluo, shaking the finger as he spoke grimly. "You still aren't enough to avenge Chen Zhenji. Call out Chen Dalu." While speaking, he turned and walked over next to Tang San. Pulling up his son, he patted Tang San's back and poured a formidable spirit power into him. "Little San, remember, even in a fight to the death, you still can't collapse." While speaking, he gave a nod to Sword Douluo next to Tang San, and shout, "We're leaving. See who dares follow." Tang Hao and Sword Douluo leapt up at the same time. He brought Tang San, and the 3 of them together headed straight for the Heaven Do Empire army. And now all the 6 great priests assembled on the walls. But just like Tang Hao said, these 6 peak Douluo actually didn't dare pursue. In their hearts they had already lost to Tang Hao's domineering manner. Tang Hao's 3 swings not only shook Golden Crocodile Douluo, but also shook all the Spirit Empire powers. Even if the strength he displayed wasn't as dazzling as Tang San's Sea God Trident, neither did Tang San possess that aggressiveness to suppress everything. "Big brother, we're just letting them leave like this." 15-ton Douluo whom Tang San had previously launched off the walls couldn't help asking indignantly. Golden Crocodile Douluo wasn't in a good mood now, and angrily said, "If you have the skill then you go chase them. Take a look at what time it is. Jilin Pass actually ended up like this. Go convene all ranking officers within the walls. The Angel Legion and Sacred Dragon Legion cannot rest. Have them immediately man the walls to prevent another attack by the Heaven Do Empire. With Jilin Pass this ruined, it's good enough to hold on to it." "Yes." The other 5 priests were clearly led by him. After deferentially agreeing, they immediately left to pass on the orders. Tang San followed his father back to the Heaven Do army side, and couldn't help turning his head to look. What he saw was a sea of blood. In this battle, both sides had equally suffered disastrous casualties, especially inside the gates of Jilin Pass, where the corpses were piled up like mountains. The defenders estimated that both sides had taken casualties exceeding 200,000 in this battle, and more than half were fatalities. Equally enormous losses. Despite the retreat still not being too late, managing a situation where both sides were hurt, seeing so many dead on the field still weighed on Tang San's heart. Shui Beng came to meet them. Seeing the brothers Tang Hao and Tang Xiao bring the Clear Sky School disciples, he inwardly breathed a sigh of relief. Were it not for the Clear Sky School's timely reinforcement, there was no telling how large the losses would have been. Regardless of anything else, if Tang San had really died in the battle, then there would be no use fighting this war. From the start of the war until now, Shui Beng had found that the Empire had become more and more dependent on Tang San. In a battle of this level, the effect of powers wasn't just in strength, but even more importantly in their influence on troop morale. Even though today's assault on Jilin Pass had failed within sight of success, and moreover with large losses, relatively speaking it was still bearable. "Teacher, state preceptor, today's my fault. I advanced prematurely desiring achievements, to the extent that so many outstanding warriors died." Shui Beng tearfully lowered his head in front of Tang San. Tang San had taken serious injuries, and his body was still weak. With a light cough, he said, "If I was in your place, I might also have made the same choice. No need to blame yourself, Your Majesty. Seeing victory around the corner, some impulsiveness is human nature. Fortunately today's battle wasn't without rewards. Let's retreat to camp first, and clean up the battlefield." Shui Beng nodded, speaking to Marshal Ji Long. "Marshal, clean up the battlefield, inventory the casualties, and pull back." "Yes, Your Majesty." This brutal battle actually hadn't gone on for too long, but because of the numbers of Spirit Masters joining in, it had become extremely desperate. Common soldiers rather served as cannon fodder, and even the Spirit Masters on the Spirit Empire's side had suffered catastrophic losses. Both sides very tacitly cleaned the battlefield almost simultaneously. The Spirit Empire cleaned up the corpses near the moat and in Jilin Pass on their own, and the battlefield beyond that didn't have too many remnants. The Heaven Do Empire had it much easier to clean, and were even more helping the dying and treating the injured. It also couldn't be helped that the Spirit Empire swept the battlefield without discerning sides. Otherwise if the numerous corpses turned into a plague, then that would be a true calamity. Returning to camp, Tang San didn't immediately go rest. He had to see to the arrangements for his father and uncle. his father and uncle. After all, the single attribute clans of the Tang Sect really had two deep grudges with the Clear Sky School, and besides the Strength clan, the other three clans had to be placated. At the same time, he also had to arrange for the Clear Sky School within the army. As for what Emperor Shuibeng would say, Tang Hao's display on top of Jilin Pass had completely convinced the Emperor thirsting for talent. As the army recuperated, Shuibeng first convened a military conference to sum up the losses of this battle. Tang San, Grandmaster, and a group of high-level members were all in the main tent. Tang San's physique really was powerful, even though he'd suffered heavy injuries before, and exhausted himself even more. In the short time it took to return to camp, he had already recovered somewhat. Judging by his face, he basically didn't seem tired. This was Tang San's true advantage, having connected the 8 extraordinary meridians, plus the boost of 12 high-level spirit rings as well as 6 spirit bones. His body was even more solid that cast copper or forge iron. Adding the blue-silver Emperor right leg bones, wildfire burns unending. The spring wind blows life again ability. As long as he didn't just get killed, even ruined limbs would recover on their own. His injuries would also heal with time. After his spirit power broke through rank 90, this recovery speed had become even more impressive. In the large tent, at least all Legion commanders and above were present, different from the first time Tang San participated. When Tang San entered together with Grandmaster, his father and uncle, practically all necks bowed respectfully to him, even including Marshal Ji Long. Teacher, your condition is still well. Shuibeng personally came to meet him. Tang San nodded. Nothing major, Your Majesty. I'll introduce you. This is my father, Clear Sky Douluo Tang Hao. This is my uncle, Clear Sky Schoolmaster Tang Xiao. Shuibeng's eyes brightened. Bowing slightly, he didn't hesitate to address Tang Ha. Greetings, teacher's father. Please have a seat. Tang Hao shook his head. I mustn't. Please, Your Majesty. We're only here to support Your Majesty. Let alone Tang Hao and Tang Xiao's relationship with Tang San. Just their title Douluo level strength as well as their efforts to reverse the tide on the battlefield today was enough to make Shuibeng strive wholeheartedly to win them over. Shuibeng didn't persist, motioning for soldiers to move over seats for the three, equally giving Grandmaster the same treatment. The military conference then began. There was none who objected to the qualifications for these four to sit in the great tent. Their strength in battle had effects beyond any words. One might say that if not for these four people, then the battle between the Heaven Do Empire and the Spirit Empire absolutely wouldn't have ended like this. Especially Tang San, who not only repeatedly defeated the opponent's high-level powers, the Tang Sect's hidden weapon Godly Judo crossbow had repeatedly showed remarkable effect on the field. To the Heaven Do Imperial Army, the effect of this King Lan Hao was too enormous. Marshal, is the casualty count complete? Shuibeng questioned Marshal Ji Long. Marshal Ji Long spoke somewhat somberly. The concrete numbers still aren't ready, but the casualty numbers exceed 100,000, especially the soldiers that charged into Jilin Pass. Less than a third of them could return. The errors of this battle are in this old official. It's this old official who advanced looking for achievements, without listening to King Landian's retreat orders. Your Majesty, please punish me according to martial law. Shuibeng sighed. No, it's not the marshal's mistake. At that time I gave the orders. Advancing for achievements was also on me. We will personally issue an imperial order of self-recrimination. We are unworthy of the deaths of the Empire's soldiers. While speaking, the rims of his eyes were already somewhat reddened. Even though Tang San knew that Shuibeng was partly acting, admitting his mistakes as emperor still wasn't easy. Only, this also showed how deeply he had hidden back in those days. It was very difficult to recognize the despotic fourth prince in this person. Shuibeng changed the topic, his face showing the dignity of the emperor. Even though we suffered large losses in this battle due to our mistake, in this war, the Spirit Empire's losses are still higher than ours. This is the contribution of King Landian, King Lan Hao and all the Spirit Master powers. They broke through the enemy blockade and stalled the Spirit Empire's strongest Spirit Masters. We will later bestow rewards to the Imperial Spirit Master Legion and the Tang Army. His gaze turned to Grandmaster. State Preceptor, the Spirit Empire's relief army has already arrived. What do you think we should do next? Grandmaster's expression was also a bit exhausted. After meeting Baby Dong, he was unable to control his mood for a long time. The military strategy should still be left to Your Majesty and Marshal Ji Long's consideration. Judging by today's battle, the Spirit Empire relief army should be their strongest force. Those 5,000 Spirit Masters should be mustered from the Spirit Empire's capital Spirit City. Most important are those 6 tidal Douluo joining. If not for the timely arrival of Clear Sky and Howling Sky Douluo, we might have seen much worse in today's battle. The 6 reinforcing tidal Douluo should be the priests of the Spirit Empire's Elder Palace, and also the strongest tidal Douluo there. Each one has spirit power over rank 95. We are inferior in overall Spirit Master strength, and this makes the difference even larger. Only, if King Lan Hao can recover, we won't be without the strength to fight. But to force our way into Jilin Pass as easily as today might be very difficult. Moreover, our troops suffered disastrous losses in today's battle. From my personal point of view, this should be time to recuperate for now. Even though the Spirit Empire's first-rate Spirit Master strength has increased, the successive battles has also enormously exhausted them, especially the damage to the walls of Jilin Pass and the casualties among the soldiers. They absolutely wouldn't dare soar you for a decisive battle with us. It's even more possible that they focus on defense and stall us, and it will be very difficult for the Tang Army's flying attack to succeed when they are prepared. Shuibeng nodded. Marshal Ji Long, your opinion? Marshal Ji Long said. The State Preceptor is correct. For the moment it is impossible to break through Jilin Pass. The army needs to recover. Moreover, the number of Spirit Masters differs too much between our arm and theirs. A siege really is too unfavorable. Unless we can lure the enemy into a frontal confrontation, then we'll have a chance. I propose we consolidate our defenses and recover, at the same time launching night attacks on the defense camps of Jilin Pass. Everything should be considered at length. At the same time, dispatch couriers to the Douluo Empire, and have them hurry and fight the Spirit Empire. The Spirit Empire's main Spirit Master force has definitely been drawn to Jilin Pass, and if they can give the Spirit Empire enough pressure, we'll have a good chance. Shuibeng frowned slightly, his gaze finally turning to Tang San. Teacher, do you have any good methods? Tang San shook his head with a wry smile. What Marshal Ji Long and teacher say is correct. At present we absolutely can't be overeager again. In order to break through Jilin Pass, we first of all have to deal with those 6 priests. Moreover, so far their strongest high priest Chen Dailiu still hasn't appeared. According to what we know, Chen Dailiu should still be stronger than Bibi Dong. If he arrives as well, then our circumstances will be very unreassuring. Once at the tidal Douluo level, it isn't something that can be met with quantity. Tang Xiao laughed slightly. If Chen Dailiu really shows up, then we'll leave him to you. As for those 6 other priests, if me and Howdy, 1, cooperate, at least we won't let them threaten the army. But if we attack, it would be very difficult. After all, the number of our Spirit Masters is too limited. Shuibeng said. It would be good if we had more of the red light teacher's wife throughout in today's battle. Tang San shook his head. I won't hide it from Your Majesty. What Xiao we used in the battle was a first-rate hidden weapon from my Tang Sect called Water Fury Tang Lotus. It was made by divine craftsman Lu Gao after my designs. Senior Lu Gao exhausted 5 years of effort and finally even sacrificed his own life, altogether producing 3 Water Fury Tang Lotuses. In a small-scale battle we are certain to threaten the lives of even tidal Douluo, but with only 2 remaining, it's not enough to chance the overall battle. Even if the Water Fury Tang Lotus was even stronger, its range is still limited. If you want to break through Jilin Pass, then right now there is only one way. His last sentence immediately drew the attention of everyone present. 1. D. From little brother. D. Analogous to G and Gege for big brother.